the help is there if it's needed. And to try this for a day, try it for a week, try it for a month, try it for a year, and see what happens. I think most people will be amazed and surprised at the feeling of wellness, because I am. I'm really, I feel so strong and grateful. And yeah, I just say, believe in yourself. Believe that you can do it.
So, hello and welcome to At the Helm, the podcast series where we explore the science, the stories, and the strategies behind food-based treatments for chronic disease. I'm your host, Dr. Charles Helm. I'm a family doctor and I'm a paleontologist. I'm broadcasting from Tumbler Ridge in northern British Columbia in the Rocky Mountains. And I am passionate about helping people reclaim their health and reclaim their hope through sustainable lifestyle changes. We've talked a lot in this series already to doctors and to scientists. One of the things I really enjoy the most is hearing people's success stories. People have put into practice the kind of things that we've been talking about and have got success stories to share with us. And today we have one such guest. I'm delighted to introduce you to Elisabeth Westlake. She's a vibrant 70-year-old artist and grandma from Victoria, British Columbia, and she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes a year ago at the age of 69. That, however, is not where her story ends. It's where her story begins. A year later, she's in remission. She's feeling stronger, more energetic, more empowered than she would ever have imagined would be possible. So we're going to talk about what changed, what helped, maybe what surprised her a bit, but probably most important, what she wants you to know if you maybe are facing a similar diagnosis. Elisabeth, welcome to At the Helm. So happy you're with us. Welcome.
Well, I'm really happy to be here, and thank you for asking me. I, like you, feel pretty passionate about this and the changes that have happened in my life.
Wonderful. Could we just maybe start looking not at the recent past, but let's say that the decade prior to your diagnosis? What was going on in your life? What had happened in your life? How were you managing health concerns, lifestyle choices, etc.? What was happening?
Well, I don't want to dwell on the past too much, because it was a difficult decade. It was a lot of loss and grief.
Mhm.
I made the cancer journey with several people close to me, including my husband, my father, and my sister, and some older friends as well. So that took up a lot of my time. A lot of my decision making was revolved around other people. I had a knee replacement in 2016, which was also challenging, but a positive result. And my son turned 15 the same month his dad passed away. So I had a daughter who was leaving for school in another city. And so my focus was on other people, like a lot of women my age in similar situation. My own health needs really took a back seat.
Yep, then that is only too common, as you've just said. Yeah, so it's a familiar story, I'm afraid, and very important to put oneself first sometimes. But let's not dwell on the past, like you've said. Let us just go back to just over a year ago, maybe a year and a week or a month ago. And what were you feeling at that time that told you things just aren't right, something's wrong?
Well, I knew before then, actually. I called 2023 my year of self-care, that I was going to pay attention to my own health. It was also the year that I got a primary physician to address some of my concerns, because I knew things weren't going as well as I wanted. Um, like, I gained weight during the pandemic, like mostly everybody else, and I wasn't happy about it. My new knee was wonderful. And I was again walking at least 10,000 steps a day, gardening a lot. So that was improvement. But my other knee was starting to get some inflammation and give me problems, which was a little scary. And overall, I was more tired than I thought I should be for my age. I've always been pretty active. So it was good to have a family doctor pay attention to a number of issues, which resolved well. And I had blood work in 2023, which turned out to be crucial to my eventual type 2 diabetes diagnosis.
Okay, and I know you were, as you've said, you were exhausted, you're tired, you're achy, and when those things happen, all of us, I think, go through that phase. Or what if it's something really serious? Could it be cancer? Could it be this or that? And we're all human, and we all have those feelings.
Well, fatigue seemed to be a hallmark of all the people who I knew who had cancer. They complained about that. So given my family history, I just thought, okay, I didn't share this with anyone, but I just thought this was something that I wanted to kind of rule out. But there was nothing really to indicate particularly that it was that. But literally, diabetes was not on my radar at all. I just wasn't even, I just don't know why I didn't think about it, but I just didn't. It wasn't something yeah. So what can I say? I'm not a doctor. And my past life experience was all around cancer journeys. So I just thought that my number was up. I'm really glad to say that I had a choice about that, because that this wasn't the case, because I could do something about this.
Right, right. But so what did it feel like when your family doctor imparts the news to you? Yes, you have type 2 diabetes. How did that feel at the time?
Well, I was shocked at first. Like I say, I've paid good attention, I thought, to my health. Then this just, even though my brother has type 2 diabetes and has for about 20 years, but I was shocked and disappointed because the positive changes I'd made in 2023 seemed inconsequential when I was facing a new diagnosis. I said, oh my goodness, now what? And I felt overwhelmed because I knew actually very little about diabetes. I had a lot of preconceptions, a lot of false preconceptions about what it was or how I got it. The thing that was the only bright light in that was that my doctor had said I kind of just crossed over into being diabetic. So my first thought with that crumb of positive news was, I want to cross back. So that's where I was at. It was tough.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, one's got to be grateful there that you were perceptive enough to go and see your family doctor who tested you. And I mean, if you are going to get diabetes type 2, it's better to be diagnosed early than when it's at a really advanced stage, because your options are certainly wider open the earlier that you have it diagnosed. But yeah, what I'd like to know, so and I guess on the other hand, it's not cancer. So you could say, well, it could have been worse, although
Absolutely.
having type 2 diabetes can be considered a really common and really serious condition to have. It's not trivial at all. But now that you've got this diagnosis, you have to adjust to it, I'm imagining. And then something in you must have said, I'm not going to go the conventional path, which is typically one medication and then add another one and another one. That might have been the path that lay ahead of you, but you somehow said, no, I'm going to try a different path. I'm going to try to reverse it, to cross back, like you've said,
Mhm.
away from being in that category to a healthier category, and to try and reverse it and put it into remission. Somehow you made that decision. So I'd love to hear what happened within you to make you make that choice.
Well, after the initial shock of the diagnosis, I it kind of changed because I felt this real feeling of relief, because I knew it was like to have cancer. I knew chemo and radiation and all that. And I thought, well, I don't have to do that. So what can I do? It felt quite liberating, because the little bit that I did read about it they always said diet and lifestyle, or life changes, making some exercise, lifestyle changes. And I thought, I can do that. Those are within my grasp. Um, and Yeah, I didn't know much about diabetes. So just started reading a little bit about it, and that's where I started. Just that feeling of relief and saying, well, if I can do something about it, I will. But I didn't know very much, so I
Yeah,
just
and speaking as a family doc, I know that myself certainly and some of my colleagues, we would pay lip service to the notion of yes, diet and exercise can help you, but I think I fell into the trap of just jumping for the prescription pad too soon, too early, and yeah, you send people down a path, and the next thing it's another medication, and so on. And looking back on my career, I wish I had intervened earlier and given the food first approaches to my patients way before even thinking of medications. So you must be fortunate, I think, in having a family doctor that was amenable to you making those choices. But I also know that our producer, Anne Mullins, is a friend and a neighbor of yours. And Anne, I'm suspecting, had quite a bit to do with shaping your mindset, making you motivated, educating you. Can you tell me about that?
Well, it took me about a month before I shared the news with anyone. And the first person I told was Anne, because I knew she was well informed on the subject. And on one of our ocean dips, I asked her, "What's that thing on your arm?" And I was teasing her about it. That was her on off button, but it was her glucose monitor. So I went, "Oh, she's really serious about this. This is something she knows something about." When I told her, Anne was so kind, no judgment at all, which was helpful. I'm hard enough on myself as it is. And she was really positive and introduced me to the concept of type 2 diabetes remission. So it's what I wanted to hear, that there was something I could do. And the power to change was in my own hands, which was liberating. I mean, especially these days where there's so much out of our control, to feel that I could do this, I could do something, that I wasn't relying on a medical system to process me through to get to some conclusion. I just felt really great about that. And I've always been active, and I always thought of myself as much healthier than apparently I was. So it was great. She was really, really wonderful. So the diagnosis thoroughly flipped from feeling disappointed, shocked, and overwhelmed to feeling a sense of gratitude and excited about getting well, and that I could feel better.
That's really empowering, isn't it?
It's
I
great.
mean,
It really genuinely is
yeah,
empowering.
it's wonderful when when someone has that revelation, that moment of epiphany, I can take charge. It's a wonderful moment, and it's lovely to hear you speaking about it. But basically, what you're telling me is that Anne was a kind of a coach for you, and
Absolutely. I got very lucky. I mean, we don't all have neighbors like Anne, living a few doors away. She really embraced giving me information, and I was hungry for that. I was Because there is so much information. It's really nice to be able to distill it to what you need right in the moment. And at the start of the journey, you don't need to know everything about it. You just need to start.
yeah.
So she was like, I would get the information just in time, like at the right time. So coaching is really valuable, and I highly encourage anyone to look at that as an option, or find a peer group, but find whatever resources you can. But Anne has been great. There's no question.
Yeah, no, because that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, we don't all have Anne Mullins for a neighbor. And if you are probably in the majority, but you've been given this diagnosis, you've been given the same news that you received, and you haven't got a neighbor who can be your coach. I mean, what do you advise? You're telling people, I think, go get a coach, do something like that, because I mean, you can do it on your own. You can do all the reading, etc., on your own. But I think you're saying it's useful to have somebody guiding you that's got expertise and skill sets, etc.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of resources. I think it's always better to take something on like this with in company. Like to do it alone is very difficult.
Mm.
And having Anne has been really great. But if Anne hadn't been there, hadn't been a coach, but just someone who could advise, she might have pointed me in the direction of finding a group or some resources with other people, a peer group, or I would have done that, peer group, or there's websites, there's podcasts like this. There's lots of YouTubes on the subject too, and some of them are really great. I really encourage people to sort of use whatever they can, what works for them, to find a way to do that. Reading is good, and I did some of that as well. But finding out what works for you individually, I think is really important. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And as you know, I'm with IPTN, the Institute for Personalized Therapeutic Nutrition, and they have wonderful resources like we can put them in the show notes actually, like the Diabetes Remission website and Reversing Prediabetes,
That
things
was so
like that.
helpful.
They would
Mhm.
be very helpful, yeah, they would be. But it's sure nice to have that personal touch as well, not just to be going to the websites. And I think that's what you're saying, yeah. So you actually went a step beyond in that you have stated that you were a willing guinea pig, to use your term. And my understanding is that Anne had actually been looking for someone who could share information and progress as the remission journey was evolving. And so you were in the right place at the right time, and persuaded you to do this and to focus on the diabetes remission website, etc. And the rest is history, as they say. But how did that feel for you?
Well, I was unexpected, but at the same time, I was really grateful to Anne that she asked me because it gave me a chance to make a difference for other people. That would be my goal. And also been an additional incentive to do well because I want to prove to myself, of course, but to others that good health is possible after this diagnosis, that it's worth making the effort. Um, so how I felt about it? Well, it's blogs. I don't really know any of the people. I'm not meeting them on the street. So I really do. I mean, I would love to, but I really am glad for the opportunity to make a difference in the bigger sphere and to contribute whatever I can to letting people know that remission is possible.
Right. Now that's really inspiring. But let's just talk then. Let's move on to what you actually did. You know, how you got from where you were to where you are now. And maybe we can just start with diet. It's the easiest one. What were you eating before and what changed?
Well, my food choices were good, but maybe for a 30 or 40-year-old, my metabolism was slowing down and I did not make allowances. The pandemic was, I gained weight just like everybody else. So that seemed kind of normal for what was going on. Um, but and eating alone, the kitchen in close proximity, all contributed to habits that needed to change. Bottom line, too many carbs and portions probably too large for an older body. So all I did at first was just take the potatoes, rice, and pasta off my plate. I eliminated almost all bread except for an emergency keto loaf I kept in the freezer for desperate moments. Um, and I did feel a sense of urgency to see results. So I was motivated to do that.
I believe you used a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor as well. And I'd love to get your thoughts on that. And if you're willing to let us know maybe which type you used and what you learned from it, that would be wonderful.
Well, I think the CGM is really a marvelous tool. It gives you instant feedback because one of the first things I learned about diabetes is that you don't know what your sugar level is. It's kind of It's all happening on the inside, but it's invisible. There's no measurement for it just by observation that I could tell. So, like the Fitbit I've used for years, I value the readings it provides. I wear a Freestyle Libre 2, and I highly recommend using that one or another one that someone prefers. And keeps me honest with my food choices, especially if you're feeling particularly weak or in a challenging social situation. And I also really value how it's shown me how stress and in my life and exercise affect blood sugar levels. So it makes the invisible visible. It's feedback, and I really value measurements and feedback because it's telling me something that I wouldn't know otherwise about myself.
I like that term, making the invisible visible. And, I am a huge fan myself of CGMs, even for people who do not have diabetes, who just want to know what's going on. And, they might not get it covered. They're going to pay $150 for the privilege of wearing one for 2 weeks. I tell people that's the best use of your money you could ever have, because you're going to learn so much in those 2 weeks. But you were in a different situation where I guess you could learn what the triggers were for spikes, which you might not have known because it's invisible, as you put it. And I guess then learning what you would therefore avoid.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, it just teaches you a lot. What I pay attention to now is insulin resistance. The fact that that's what I'm still dealing with. I thought I get a significant spike with just 10 grams of carbs, just right up to the top of my red line there. So I just go, and it's not very much because look at most packaged foods and things. I mean, 2 cookies will have 60 to 80 grams of carbs, which is more than I have in a day. So yeah, so it that kind of information is really important. I thought I could relax a bit on the carbs, given that I was in remission and my A1C is at 5.2. But that's not the case. It took me a long time to get this insulin resistant cells working away at my body doing their best, and it's going to take a lot longer to reverse that so that I'm not feeling that experience the same way.
I think that's an important message as well, because with insulin resistance, it still underlies things. And if you were to go back to your old ways, the type 2 diabetes would almost certainly come back. So we're not talking cure, we're talking about remission, but remission is a wonderful word. And it's within the grasp of so many people. But were there any particular triggers you had that oh my goodness, I've just eaten this and now I've had this massive spike in my glucose?
There's a few things. The first time I noticed the spike, the first time I wore one, I had a jar of sour cherries, and I didn't have that many, but it just shot up like crazy. I just went, oh my goodness, look what happens. Interestingly enough, it was also when I realized that the tinnitus in my left ear came back with the sugar spike. And I just wondered, because it would be intermittent. And over the years, I just thought, oh, this tinnitus drives me crazy. But I haven't had it in ages now. And who knew that type 2 diabetes was a trigger for getting my ear whistling? It's like a tea kettle warning, and I didn't know how to interpret it.
Well, that's really interesting that you say that, because, if you read up on insulin resistance and some of the less expected symptoms, that is, well, deafness, but tinnitus, that's one of them.
Is it really? Oh,
Yeah. And so, for my medical career, I would dread patients coming in to tell me that they've got tinnitus, because what can you do? You can try a few things, but you're pretty much guaranteed to fail as the family doctor, and your patient's not very happy because you're not waving this magic wand. But yeah, maybe tackling insulin resistance. It might take a bit of time, but that's very, very interesting that you say that. But you've also said that eating this way was easier than other diets which you've tried in the past. So, what made it so easy or doable for you this time around, compared to previous diet attempts you might have made?
I think a lot of it has to do with being scared of my diagnosis. My incentive initially was sheer terror because I wanted to get well, and so making that choice was a little easier initially that way. But what I found afterwards is that it's easier because I'm not getting the cravings that I was getting. The cravings are the worst. It's a monster. Because once that brain tickle starts to happen, saying, "Oh, well, if you like this, have some more," it's in the absence of that, food just becomes normal, and it does become you don't fixate on it the same way. So eliminating cravings is huge, and I think really and truly one of the hardest parts of making the transition, because when you're feeling a craving, it doesn't take time off for for you to just do like you have to distract yourself seriously with the cravings. It's challenging. So that's where I am now. I really notice that if I start eating carbs again, that my brain says, we like that, let's do it some more. And got to nip that in the bud, because I don't want to feel those. I don't want to feel that preoccupation with battling that craving.
Yeah, that's really well put. And I mean, just about everybody that's eaten this way and succeeded, when I ask them that, they say the same thing, that they just don't feel so hungry anymore. So you don't bother to eat. Those cravings are gone, and with eating the low carb way. So it's
And the
really,
reward, sorry, the reward too is I'm seeing results, right? Like I can feel how much better I'm feeling. That isn't something I'm willing to give up easily because I've worked hard to get here. So uh yeah, no,
sure.
it's
But let's talk about those rewards, that progress. I'd love to hear about it. You've already mentioned you've got your HbA1c, which just mentioned is the 3-month average that we physicians kind of look at and target, try and get it down. I mean, 5.2, that is a pretty remarkably good HbA1c for somebody who a year ago was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I mean, that's a remarkable change. But what are the other things that you noticed improved? I'm thinking of weight. You mentioned your knee pain, and various other things that might have improved.
well, I do have to credit my knee injection for restoring my ability to move. So that was big. But in terms of results, well, I my sleep is better. The aches and pains are gone. I thought that those were all associated with just having an older body and some arthritis coming on, but it was related to the diabetes. The brain fog is gone. Like um, I feel smarter. I really do. I just feel like my more an active intelligence instead of there's just a dullness with that fatigue and everything. So there are innumerable small but measurable improvements.
Right. And there are so many people who tell me the things that you are telling me now. And, the critics will say, well, this is just an anecdote. This is one person and one person's story. But the question then is, well, what if we got tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of anecdotes? Does that become data or not? I think it does, because you just hear the same thing from so many people. And it's not a controlled double-blind clinical trial, but it's people's success stories and telling us this is what happened. So let's just fast forward for you. Your knee pain's improved, you've lost some weight, your sugars have come down, you're in remission, you're gardening, you're walking, you're lifting your weights. So it really sounds to me as if movement and strength training, those meant a lot to you as well in your recovery.
Well, yes, I've always been active. I like my 5K runs. I used to do cardio classes, dance classes. I stay active and do stuff that I enjoyed. Um, it's it just felt, well, once I started feeling better, it just seemed a natural to go back to doing something. Now I couldn't do, my knee wouldn't let me jump into things where movement was rapid or I couldn't control it. So going back to the gym and using the machines is a great way to get back into it, because you can start wherever you want to start. Don't have to take on more exercise, and it's really yeah, you can just improve. I'm already adding weights on, even in the 3 months that we've been doing this, my friend and I. And so I think that, and also, of course, it's changing the fat cells to getting some muscle back.
So, Elisabeth, you're doing all this strength training, this movement, you're feeling better, your
Mhm.
aches and pains, your energy, those things are all aches and pains gone, energy up, brain fog gone. Were there any things that you used to kind of track to measure how you were doing?
Well, when I started with the idea of going back to the gym, I was interested to see how much improvement I could make and how that related to the diabetes. So I went for a DEXA body scan, which would tell me how much body fat I had compared to lean muscle. So that was shocking because it was much higher body fat than I imagined. My self-image is clearly enhanced by my imagination. So that was really, I went, oh, okay, well, this is a goal to really see this. So I go in a couple of weeks. So it'll be measuring over 3 months, and that, I think, again, like the glucose monitor, is a really useful tool to incentivize to continue on the path.
Yeah, and hopefully it gives you a good reaffirmment, reinforcement of what you are doing, because it would surprise me if you're feeling so much better in so many ways and that result is not going to improve as well. But I also want to ask you, other people that I've spoken to, they say, well, yes, there's the success, but it hasn't been plain sailing the whole way. There have been a few hiccups, a few bumps on the way. Have you experienced any of those when, for whatever reason, okay, things are not going as well as I wanted them to?
Well, I definitely have had times of feeling discouraged or excluded when it's birthday cake time or something, and I pass and I just think it's like a really nice cake. But again, I'm trying to stick with the plan. So there are moments where it's just, the rainy days that we have here on the coast, and it gets so dreary, and um, comfort food starts to sound much more appealing and warranted because we're feeling the chill. But I substitute, and I sublimate, and I figure workarounds to that mental process that says, we'll just give it up. But I'm not going to.
So, do you have a kind of a go-to food when that happens, something that's actually healthy but quite tasty that you won't go for that carrot cake with cream or whatever, but you'll find something else?
Chocolate. I was never a big chocolate fan, but I get the 93% chocolate. It's the bitter chocolate.
Mm.
One square of it actually is really, really satisfying to me. And I read that in one book, and Why French Women Don't Get Fat. I read years ago, and that's what they do. They'll have a piece of chocolate, like just a piece of chocolate, not a chocolate bar. And like I said, I never ate a lot of chocolate, but it does have some psychological benefit, I think. And um, yeah, that's one thing I do. There really isn't a lot. I mean, I'd really like a raspberry Danish, but I haven't had one of those in a really long time. So yeah, it's difficult sometimes. I'm not gonna pretend that it isn't, but there's such a lot of good food, and we're so very fortunate here in Canada to have this abundance, which is part of the problem why I'm in this situation in the first place. But at the same time, there's lots of choices, and we get all kinds of good food. And berries are wonderful. I'm looking forward to berry season this year, and treated myself to some hot house locally grown strawberries. They were fantastic. They were so delicious and satisfying that, yeah. And because I've always stayed fairly close to natural foods, um, I really appreciate the value of some of those treats. So, yeah.
Right. And I guess we could call the chocolate habit now, and it's not all the time, it's when you're feeling discouraged or on those
Yeah.
cold, rainy days, whatever, just one chocolate. I'd imagine you never thought in advance that's what's going to happen. That's something that came along as a tweak. You're tweaking things so
Yeah.
that they work for you, which is fantastic. I think most people who've got success stories to share with us, they do have tweaks. They've got ways of coping. But just beginning to wrap up, Elisabeth, you've spoken really eloquently, but just give me a takeaway message for other people, something that's inspiring from you.
Well, um, I think the main thing I'd say is that it's a worthwhile thing to do for yourself. And that I believe that if I can do it, because I'm a pretty ordinary person, if I can do it, then someone else, there are many people out there can do it too. And that the help is there if it's needed. And to try this for a day, try it for a week, try it for a month, try it for a year, and see what happens. I think most people will be amazed and surprised at the feeling of wellness, because I am. I'm really, I feel so strong and grateful. And yeah, I just say believe in yourself, believe that you can do it, and go for it.
And give it a try, like you've said, because I think once you've tasted that feeling of wellness, you never want to go back.
Absolutely true.
Yeah. I know that you're a grandma, and you've kind of got this new empowered lease on life. Um, so how has this changed your vision of what lies ahead the rest of your life?
Well, I can lift them now. 18 months old, 30 pounds. And thanks to that wait time and the feeling of confidence that I have in my own body again, um, I can lift them and cuddle them and feeling like there's a whole lifetime of enjoying this little boy ahead of me. I'm really happy about that.
And what can be more important than that? I mean, that's what life is all about. So that's really, really encouraging hearing you say that. I'd like to ask you what your favorite meal is, but not in the olden days, the favorite meal today.
Well, I was a reluctant breakfast eater. I used to postpone breakfast. Uh, I wake up, I want my cup of coffee in the morning and my eggs. I make an omelet, or I have numerous ways that I make my eggs, but spinach and mushrooms and a little bit of cheese in a 2 or 3 egg omelet. Perfect. I really enjoy it, and I'm not bored by it at all. And if I am, then I do soft boiled or do something different.
That sounds absolutely delicious and very healthy, all at the same time, which is what we want. So, Elisabeth, the final question. I've sort of asked you this in a different way already, but I think it's so important for our listeners just to know this. So, if someone is listening right now that has maybe just been given the diagnosis like you were of type 2 diabetes, and they're feeling defeated, they're feeling overwhelmed, they're just not happy, they're discouraged, and they don't know what to do. And they could choose this route of medication and another medication and down that path, or they could choose the route that you chose. But the bottom line is they're feeling defeated, they're feeling overwhelmed. What is your advice to them? What would you like them to know?
I would like them to know that those feelings will pass once you make a decision that's right for you. And I would like them to choose to embrace their own power, their own belief in themselves to say, well, I'm going to try this. I'm not going to go to the medical route. I don't like taking medication if I have a choice about it. Um, so that was an easier one for me. Yeah, and I'm cheap. I don't really want to spend the money on it. I'd rather buy those strawberries than pay for medication if I have an option not to pay for medication for something. So I would say that those feelings of overwhelmness, I felt all of that, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. Like just go for it. Believe in yourself. Do it. Just try. Just try.
Just try. Yeah, say, Elizabeth, you're not only are you giving me a message of success, but it's a message that is inspiring. But what I'm hearing from you, maybe more than anything else, it's a message that is empowering. You know, you have the gift now to empower other people to follow the same path that you did because it is doable, as you've said. So I just want to thank you for spending your time with us today and being willing to be interviewed. Um, I want to congratulate you on your achievements. You're round about the 1 year mark right now and not showing any signs of regressing. As you've said, once you feel this good, you never want to go backwards. And above all, thank you for sharing your message of empowerment. It's been a real privilege to talk with you and learn of all your success. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And to all those dear ones out there who are watching this or facing a particular challenging moment about decision making on this, I really wish you well. And I'm thinking about you and wishing you all the best on your journeys. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Elisabeth. And I also want to thank Anne Mullins, our producer, and Elisabeth's coach, we can add. I'd like to thank Graham Wheeler, our technical whiz, IPTN, the Institute for Personalized Therapeutic Nutrition, who sponsors this series, and the RCCBC, the Rural Coordination Center of British Columbia, that inspires me to do this work. I hope to see you all again soon. Thank you for joining me today on At the Helm.